On the 12th of June 2026, I, Mary Chilima, received a summons to appear before the ad hoc committee on the Chikangawa plane crash inquiry, where I'm expected to testify on the chronology of events from the time the late Vice President returned from South Korea until his travel on 10th June, including communications, travel preparations, and interactions departure. May I seek your indulgence, Chair, to go a bit further than 10th of June as per the summons?
You may proceed.
Thank you. Here is my submission. We departed the Republic of Korea on the 6th of June 2024, and we spent a night in Dubai. The next morning, we left Dubai on 7th of June 2024 for South Africa. Upon arrival in South Africa, I collected our daughter from school to join us in the hotel where we were staying, and that evening we sat down to dinner together in the hotel restaurant. During dinner, Dr. Chilima got a message that was clearly bad news. I asked what had happened, and he said that his friend, Mr. Raf Kasambala SC, had died. We were all in shock. I recall he tried to call Mrs. Maggie Kasambala, but she wasn't picking up, understandably so. At the time, two of his good friends, Mr. Tutu Kachingwesisia and Mr. Moses Ntakomwa, were waiting for him to finish dinner for a chat. After the message, he excused himself to meet his friends and to try to get more details of the sudden death. By the end of the night, we had learned that Mr. Kasambala had died in Lilongwe and that he would be brought to Blantyre, upon which further programs would be advised. During the 8th of June, Dr. Chilima continued to engage the Kasambala family on the planned way forward. In the meantime, we had planned to spend the Saturday visiting the sick and buying a few personal items. As planned, we went to see Honorable Lucius Banda in hospital. We saw Mr. Nkondula Uga and the family of Right Honorable Kumbo Kachale, who had a child in the hospital. Thereafter, Dr. Chilima had meetings with various friends and colleagues, which went on for the rest of the day and well into the evening. During this time, he informed me that there were discussions on where the late Mr. Kasambala would be buried, noting that he might either be buried in Blantyre or in Katabe. Later that evening, Dr. Chilima informed me that the burial would take place in Katabe. He then informed me that depending on which day the burial would occur, he might not be able to attend as the President was going on an official trip. We discussed and agreed that I would go in his place should he be unable to do so. He was grateful because he knew that I had a PhD proposal resubmission due on the 11th of June at 2 p.m. He informed me that he would instruct his office to make the appropriate arrangements for my travel to Nkatabe for the burial ceremony on the confirmed date. On the morning of the 9th, as we were returning to Malawi, he informed me that there had been a change of plan and that Mr. Kasambala would be flown to Nkatabe that afternoon. He further informed me that it would no longer be necessary for me to go to the burial ceremony in Nkatabe, as we would meet Mrs. Maggie Kasambala and the family at the Chileka airport and offer our condolences there. Seeing how tired we all were, this seemed to be the most feasible plan. He said we would later plan a trip to Blantyre to condole them properly upon their return from Nkatabe, and I agreed. We landed at Chileka Airport, possibly around 2:30 p.m., expecting to find the funeral entourage already there, but unfortunately, they were late. We were assured that they were on their way, but sadly, the call to reboard the plane to Lilongwe came before they arrived. Dr. Chilima noted that the plane had to proceed to Nairobi, and we could not ask them to delay just for our programs, as that would have been selfish of us. I later learned that they missed us by less than 10 minutes. He informed me that he would advise me on the way forward, since we had been unable to meet and offer our condolences to the Kasambala family in Blantyre as planned. Upon arrival in Lilongwe, he went straight into various meetings, and I in turn proceeded to work on my proposal resubmission. At some point, he informed me that some of his lawyer friends had stated that Dr. Kasambala needed to be buried in person. Dr. Chilima was upset by this comment because he felt like it was unfair to expect him to attend under the circumstances. He expressed frustration at the expectation for him to attend the funeral in Nkatabe as well as the presidential send-off in Lilongwe. I was therefore surprised when later he informed me that he would go to the funeral. I asked how, and he said that the presidential program had changed from a 1 p.m. departure to a 5 p.m. departure, making it more feasible for him to attend both. He explained that we would depart by plane at 9 a.m. the next morning and arrive in Zuzu by 10 a.m., then plan to be at the funeral latest by 11 a.m. The plan was to return to the airport by 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m. in order to make sure that we return to Lilongwe by 3:30 p.m., in ample time to see the president off. He then proceeded to bed, and I continued working until around 2 a.m. After about 3 hours of rest, I continued to work on my submission in the morning, while he went to church around 5:45 a.m. Upon his return from Holy Mass, he asked how I was progressing with my submission, and I told him I still had a lot of reading and writing to do. I then asked whether it was possible for me to stay to continue working on my submission. He agreed and urged me to ensure that I met the deadline as required. I continued working while he went to the gym between 7 and 8 a.m. Later, we said our usual goodbyes and he left. I got a text from him around 9 in the morning telling me that he had boarded, and I responded by wishing him a safe trip Mwambwe. I continued working, and at around 10:30 a.m., I texted him to check if he had arrived, but he did not respond, which was strange, because he would normally tell me when he landed. Since he was attending a public event, I took a break to watch the funeral online, hoping I would see him, but I did not. I continued working on my submission. However, in between sessions, I would check my phone, but there was still nothing. In the afternoon, around 1:30, I tried to contact him again, but there was nothing. There was no response. I assumed that he was driving back to Nzuzu Airport for Lilongwe. I anticipated that he would be landing in Lilongwe around 3 to 3:30 p.m. and would call me back when free. Around 3 p.m., I heard the voice of Mrs. Grace Varela calling me from downstairs. I told her I was coming down, but she said she was coming up to where I was, which I found to be very strange because I was in our private quarters. And immediately when she said that, I rushed to her. When I saw her face, I knew that something was wrong, and I asked her what it was, and she informed me that the plane was missing. The news didn't register, and I immediately started calling Saulos. I tried him a few times, but the phone still remained off. I asked her what time he had left the funeral, because at that moment my understanding was that the plane went missing on its way back to Lilongwe. The idea that it had been missing since morning didn't even occur to me. It was simply not plausible. When I was informed that the plane went missing on the way to Mzuzu, I just didn't understand why no one had informed me for over 5 hours. I called my aunt, Miss Rose Gamoto. I called my mother, I called my sister-in-law Maria, I called my children and informed them that the plane carrying their dad was missing. My aunt rushed over, and upon her arrival, she called Father Chatsira in Nguludi and arranged for a virtual Holy Mass immediately. We had the virtual Mass with the hope that they had had an emergency landing somewhere out of reach. I later got a visit from Dr. Laki Sigwese, who came to tell me that the plane had crashed. I remember he used the word crashed. This was when reality began to sink in. At the time, I was working on faith that Dr. Chilima had had an emergency landing somewhere. I still kept trying to call him. When I found out that Madame Chanel was also in the plane, I also tried to call her, but to no avail. I wanted to leave Lilongwe immediately to go and find him, but I was told no one had a destination for me to go to yet. No one knew where the plane had crashed. Everyone discouraged me from going, saying they would find him soon and I could go to him as soon as they found him. I also got a visit from the Inspector General of Police and Honorable Kumbize Chiponda. I don't really recall what they said, but I remember scolding the IG for the delay in searching because it was late evening when they came. I kept asking why it took them so long to start searching. At that time, she could not give a satisfactory answer. Little did I know it would take 23 hours before they found them. That evening, we kept praying, crying, praying. Dr. Chilima has a personal pew in our home, and Aunt Rose and I took turns praying on it all night. It was the longest night of my life. Morning came with no news, just family members pouring in with grief all over their faces. We kept speaking hope and life into the situation. I tried again to leave to join the search, and someone said I had to be in Lilongwe for when our children arrived. Around 11 a.m., I started getting condolence messages from various people. And I would ask them if they had heard something, and they started backtracking and apologizing. Others didn't even respond. I then started to check social media to see if the plane had been found, and on one of the pages, I saw a picture of a plane. I rushed outside to the second in charge of the Vice President's security, Miss Gloria Ntukule, and asked her if the picture was real. And she said she was on the phone with Mr. Limbikani Banda and would respond. I informed both children that their father had died in a plane crash just before they too boarded planes to come home. As I was talking to the children, someone came in to say I had to go and sit downstairs because the First Lady was coming and she had to find me seated. I refused. When I went downstairs, I found the house completely full of women, already dressed in black, ministers and others whom I did not know, and the First Lady was also there. Some were taking photos. It was chaotic, uncomfortable, and confusing. After that, we kept getting groups of different people. At some point, 40 clergy from different churches came at once, and I remember one said, "Mulungu sala kuitsa, koma ababoka wala kuitsa." We kept getting people coming to the private residence until someone made a decision to have everyone congregate at the Area 12 residence to give us a little room to grieve. I was very anxious about my children who were both flying that day. But I still wanted to go to Chikangawa. But I was told that the bodies would be flown to Kia. And when I said I wanted to go to Kia, I was told no, because the president wasn't going to be at Kia. Later in the evening, we were rushed to leave because we were told that the former president was going to go to the airport after all, and we had to rush to arrive before him. We arrived at Kia. I remember seeing the big helicopters and thinking, where were they yesterday? After the planes landed, I saw body bags being moved into different medical vehicles. I was told to drive behind the car carrying Saulos, but I refused, and I insisted on going with him in the ambulance that took him to the mortuary. He was in a white bag in the back. I couldn't accept that this bag I was looking at was my Saulos. I really don't remember much after that. Since he had left on the morning of Monday, 10th June, I was only allowed to see him on Thursday, the 13th of June, around 7 a.m. at the mortuary. I was told to prepare myself because he was hurt. I went in not knowing what to expect, but I had to be strong for my children, and we were grateful that we were finally able to see him again. That morning, he was supposed to have his final Mass at St. Patrick's Parish at a set time, but Mass was delayed by close to 2 hours due to the late arrival of the former president. This hurt because Saulos was never late for Mass. On the 15th, we left the Area 12 residence to go to Parliament for a public viewing ceremony, and on the 16th, we had the stadium funeral ceremony. I was still in a state of shock and confusion. We left for Nsipe, and as we were driving through the city, people were mourning and throwing flowers at the hearse. But after leaving Lilongwe, crowds were demanding that we stop, and eventually they started stoning the convoy. Several times we almost collided into each other on the high-speed convoy. We were clearly given inadequate protection, and in response, our personal protection team had to radio ahead to district police, urging them to help us along the way in providing additional security all the way to Nsipe. Unfortunately, due to the violence of the people along the way, the coffin was dented with stones. Our car windows, some of them had been shattered, and my children and I were traumatized beyond belief. I honestly thought that we too were going to die that day. Later I learned that some innocent souls died from this senseless violence. May their souls rest in peace. On 17th of June 2024, we committed our beloved Dr. Saulos Chilima to his final resting place in Nsipe. Such were the events between 6th and 17th of June 2024 to my best recollection. For the interest of time and in relation to my sermon's Honorable Chair, allow me to pause here.